Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It's Friday night, and you're listening to Paranormal Review Radio with your hosts, Anthony in New York.
And me, Luci Leadfried from Chicago. We are so happy that you're here with us tonight. Our chat room is up and running, so feel free to further discuss the topic or ask a question. You can also call in with your questions, too, 661-244-9831. Make sure you press the number 1 to get into the queue. And if you lose sound on your player, just refresh your page or log back in. Blog Talk can be a little bit wacky sometimes. You can also send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. And be sure you check us out on our Facebook show page.
Okay. Though Bigfoot expeditions and findings have really started to pick up in the last 50 years or so, Bigfoot and Bigfoot-like beings have been a part of many Native American cultures for centuries. Native Americans have known about Bigfoot for centuries, and their stories have been passed from generation to generation through legends and folklore. Our guest tonight is Arla Williams. Arla is of Cherokee descent and claims to have seen and spoken to what she calls the Kashima people, or Bigfoot as we know them. Her encounters with these people started as early as 6 years old and continue today to teach Arla of their culture and of their tribe so that she can share with everyone. What has she learned from these primal people that we don't know or should know? Arla does not expect to make a believer out of you on what she says, but just wants to share what she has seen and heard and allow you to make up your own mind. Let's all welcome Arla Williams to the show. Hi, Arla. Welcome to the show.
Hey. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
We're just fine. Hello, Arla. How are you?
I'm good. This is a little unusual for me. I'm usually in you guys' seat, welcoming someone else on our radio show called Midnight Walkers, which is on Wednesday night on Blog Talk Radio. So this is kind of a turn the tables on me, so it'll be fun anyway.
We got you in the hot seat now, Arla, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just relax, sit back, and just let someone else run the board. And you know what? Before we go, make sure you put the link to your show in the chat room, okay?
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so let's start. What I would like to start with was, how was it like being a little girl at the age of 6 and meeting what you would come to find was Bigfoot at your grandmother's house?
Probably pretty normal for me. Actually, I was 6, almost 7, and I was at my grandmother's, and I was out playing, which I was normally out playing somewhere, and I was sitting on the ground playing in the dirt with a stick, and I heard someone walk up. I thought it was my grandmother coming, but when I looked up, it wasn't my grandmother. It was what we call a juvenile male, which was a young male, and we just kind of stood there staring at each other. And I don't know how long we stood stared there at each other, but he turned around then and walked off back into the woods. Well, of course, I jumped up and ran in the house, and I told my granny what I'd seen and described it, and I asked her, I said, "What was that, Granny?" And all she said to me at that time was, "What do you think it was?" She didn't go into any detail or anything else at that time. She wanted me to think about it. And so at another time, she talked with me more about it. Now, at this time, and pretty much in a lot of tribal history for people, they didn't talk about them with just anybody. And so I was taught not to talk about them with other people. We knew they were there. They lived their lives, and, and we lived ours. And that's just basically how it was. So we just really didn't talk a lot about it. And for anyone who knows anything about Native culture, there's a lot of things they don't talk about with everybody. It's just how it is. And, so I spent the majority of my life not talking about them. Now, when I became a teenager, there was a group of us that were always out in the woods looking for something. And at this time, where I grew up around Henrietta, Oklahoma, they called them woolly boogers. And so we would go out and see if we couldn't find the woolly booger. Now, my grandmother would have had a fit if she had known I was out doing that. But, kids are going to be kids. So, and we did, the group of 5 of us, one night ended up hearing pretty much what we call a kind of a grunt howl, which they do. So, and from there, I've known all my life that they were there. It was never a question for me, did they exist or didn't they exist? And then in 2003 is when they really started making themselves known to me more and more so around where I lived at the time. But it escalated in about 2004.
Okay.
And then just began to be more and more and more and more and more until I was being able to interact with them on a personal level.
Well, taking all that into account, can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and how did you develop this relationship now that they began making themselves known to you? How did you further this relationship with the Bigfoot?
It was purely done with respect. One of the teachings of the Bigfoot for different tribal nations, and even within certain tribes, you're going to have some call them one thing and some call them another. But if you look at a lot of different tribal people, you're going to hear their stories about what it is that the Bigfoot teaches. And anybody who ever talks to me, you're going to get my respect talk. And that is basically what Kashima had relayed to me, is that we have to be in respect. We don't respect the earth. We don't respect the water. We don't respect each other. We don't even respect ourselves. And to come to things in a right way, we have to regain that respect for everybody. One of my favorite Cherokee teachings is called De Yasalareste, and De Yasalareste means hold one another up. It doesn't mean pick and choose who you want to hold up. You hold everybody up. It doesn't mean you have to respect what they're doing, but you hold them up. And so that's very much where I came to this. I've never asked them to do anything. All of my interaction with them has been purely because they chose to do it. They became a very integral part of my life in a lot of ways. And then when I was asked to start speaking out about them, I had a very hard time with that because I was always taught that that was something that we shouldn't do. But it is something that we have to do now. These are a primal people. They are a tribal people who have always lived beside us, whether we know it or not. They have always been there. That hasn't changed. And they're going to push humanity to the limit to accept them as being another people. Number one, for how they look. Mm-hmm. They do look very similar to us, but they also look different also. The ones that I have seen have very human-like faces, very human-like, and have many, many human physical attributes, lips and their language. They do have a language that they speak, but they also can speak other languages also. I have a lot of friends who do a lot of audio and things, and they have them speaking, even answering a question. Alex Midnight Walker, who is on the show with me on Wednesday nights, he's Cuban and speaks Spanish, and he will ask something, and he has gotten them answering him in Spanish. So these are people. They've lived around us. They can pick up our language very much from observing us.
Well, let's talk about the appearance for a little bit. Now, I've heard that the hairy man, or Bigfoot, according to certain tribal beliefs, actually helped create man because the coyote wanted us to be on all fours and not upright. Can you share your thoughts on this with us?
That story I don't know. There's a lot of people that ask me who learned what from whom. Did the Indian people teach the Bigfoot things, or did the Bigfoot teach Indian people things? And so, you can get into a big discussion about how that went. Some tribal people, I'd heard a Zuni elder talk about them, and he called them raw beings. Raw beings in the fact that these are a being from the beginning, something that came from the beginning. So, when you get into tribal stories and things, and tribal stories teach us things. Our history is embedded in those stories, and our teachings of how we're supposed to live are embedded in those stories. And some of those stories are about Bigfoot and some of the things that they do. So, that particular story, I don't know. But that doesn't mean that was not a valid story for the people who told it. Kashima, he is considered what a lot of people call an ancient. He is like a teacher. The only reference I could give you that you might understand as a tribal people is he would be the teacher for the tribe, or the medicine people that would hold the teaching that would be needed. I've just always called him an ancient. It's basically my word for him. He is a teacher. He does talk to me. I have seen him in physical flesh and blood, and he has taught me different things about how I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to live and how I'm supposed to relate to a lot of different things. So it's, it's an interesting interesting phenomenon for a lot of people because so many believe that they're a myth, but they're not a myth. They are actual physical flesh and blood beings who make you scratch your head when you see some of the things that they have the ability to do. He does teach unconditional love. That is respect, too, respecting others. And one of the things that he had told me about being respectful, and it's very interesting because these are some of the things that the elders, tribal elders, talk about, too, is that being respectful of myself is one of the most important things, because if I'm in respect or honoring myself, I'm not going to dishonor someone else. One of the things he told me was about judging other people or situations. And he told me that I'm not to judge a situation or a person as good or bad. How I'm to look at this is to say, okay, is this something that I am compatible with in my belief, in my feelings? If it's not something that I am compatible with, then I take myself from it. I walk away from it. I don't have to go out and say, oh, this is bad, don't be a part of this, don't do this, don't do that. And I don't even have to respect that person or that thing. But what I have to do is be respectful of myself in how I address that thing. And so you won't ever hear me call anyone names or anything else when talking about something. If someone doesn't, believe me or confronts me or anything else, you're not going to hear me calling them names or anything else. That to me, that's very disrespectful.
Arla, when Luci and I were doing research for the show, we read many, many stories, tribal stories, of amongst the Native Americans and the Bigfoot, that there were a lot of interactions. I mean, I don't know if they're true or false, but a lot of the stories that we had read were in regards to even to the fact of bartering in between Bigfoot and the Native Americans. So my question, though, to you is, it seems as though that there was a lot of this communication and this, it could be friendly and it could be also bad relationships that they had together. But it seems as though it was a lot frequent back then. Is there a reason why that it seems as though that it's much more or much less frequent now?
Disrespect is the main reason.
Okay.
Being disrespectful of them, being disrespectful of where they live. One of our elders, one of our Choctaw elders had talked about when, and this is something he had been told, that when the great disrespect, and this is what he called it, came, was when the Europeans came to this country and began to try to change the Indian people's way of thinking and the way of doing things. And so disrespect began to creep into the relationships that Indian people had with them. And so, that's the reason that I would say, and I know from firsthand of dealing with people in this Bigfoot research world that I seem to be a part of now, that if you want to have interaction with them, it's pretty simple. If you will put yourself in respect and go into the woods, which is their home, and be respectful. Don't expect anything from them. Go to the woods, have fun. They love to come and observe us when we're having fun in the woods. So it's pretty simple, and it all builds on being respectful. Now, yeah, you can get a response from them if you're out yelling and screaming and call blasting and doing a lot of the things that you see on TV. You're going to get a response, but what kind of response are you going to get? Are you just wanting to get them to howl back at you? Or do you really want to have some type of interaction with them on a more personal level? Do you want to grow from that, or do you just want to hear them scream or howl or whatever?
Well, that leads me into my next question. And, there seems to be a lot of, not a lot of, but I've read a lot of reports from anthropologists that are researching and study the Sasquatch. And funny enough, anthropology is the study of people and man. Besides being from and understanding the Native American lessons, how do you feel about the groups that are researching or what I've seen quoted as tracking Bigfoot?
You don't have to track them. They're going to find you. And, I tell people that all the time. You don't have to go out and look for them. They will find you. It's that simple. Now, I don't watch any of the shows that are on TV that are targeted towards the Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. One of them in particular I've never watched. I will not watch it, and the only reason I won't is because in the beginning when they hyped this show, they did something that was very disrespectful as far as I'm concerned personally, and I made the decision at that time not to support that show. And that was totally my decision, and I didn't ask anyone else to make that decision. So, and people are going to come to this in the way that they need to come to it. I'm against call blasting, and call blasting is you go out in the woods and you take the Sierra sounds or you take some of their howls or whatever, and you put that on something and you scream it into the woods. Number one, you don't know what you're saying to them doing that. And, yeah, you're probably going to get a response. But is that really what you want, or do you want more? Do you want to know more about them? Do you want to know that they can yell or scream or do whatever? I mean, that's pretty evident. I mean, you can go on YouTube and hear tons and tons and tons of screams and howls. I've heard screams and howls. I have my own audio and stuff. But, I'm not into being disrespectful to them. To me, that's disrespectful. And that's where I have to come from, is how I feel and what I think about this, because this is very personal for me.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show. Luci and I are both paranormal researchers and paranormal investigators, and, we disagree with, just like you were saying, we disagree with a lot of the shows that are out there that pertain to and I hate the word, ghost hunting. We wanted to try, we like to, and this is the reason why we do the radio, is because we want to try and bring in folks that bring in a real true side of the paranormal, or the true side of the story and how things should go. And when we came across you, just that alone, the way that you have proceeded to go about learning and of listening to the Sasquatch, and then coming out and coming forward and relaying that information to all of us is beautiful, and that's what we like to bring out to people. We like to get them to understand what the true basis is for trying to find Bigfoot. And I agree with you, the folks that go out there and just do the sound effects or the noises just to get a response, I think is okay, but at the same time it can be disrespectful. But like you said, if you really want to get to know them, if you really want to get to know of what they are, then you should do it with respect, and you should do it with the way that is proper, just as though if they were another human being. And I love that way that you still, and you have brought about that term, that they're people.
Yes, and they are a people. And, my thoughts are always, if you want to know someone, let's say if you were going to go to another country and you wanted to learn something about these people, would you take their language that you did not know and scream it at them?
Right.
What kind of interaction would you have with those people? I don't think it would be something I would want to have happen. So, and that's all I'm trying to get people to see is, these are a people. They are like us in some aspects, and then they are not like us in some aspects. And so it is really going to push us to be respectful in this and to allow them to live like they want to live. I mean, they've been doing this forever. They've always been there. And, I hear people say, well, we need to protect them. I think we need to set aside land for them. No, we don't need to set aside land for them. They wouldn't stay on it if you set aside land for them. We are not going through this again and put an ancient tribal people on a reservation.
Right.
For one thing, these are not like tribal people, humans that we are. They're not going to stay in a given place. They don't have to, for one thing, and they've never done that. And so we've got to come to this with a whole new thought of how do we coexist. My main thing is that they're not shot and killed and hunted and harassed. That's my main thing.
I want to touch on the communication aspect. And as you know, I'm Cherokee, so I understand a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what the elders have taught us as we grow older. And it is hard to get this across to people that are not Native.
Yes.
A lot of times it's very hard to explain the Native American way of thinking. But I do want to touch on the communication aspect of it. How do you feel about, has the Bigfoot people, have they developed a way of communicating with us as human beings? Is there a language? Is there, I know you mentioned that one of your friends got a response in Spanish, and I know a lot of it could be, the so-called trackers going in and screaming and making noises, but is there an actual language or way to communicate, to get ideas across, to get that exchange with the Bigfoot?
Yes, there is. There's several. I'm pretty basic in how I go out and talk to them. I have people ask me all the time, if I go to the woods, what do I need to do to say to them? And what I do when I go to the woods is say, hi, guys. And then I sometimes get a response. Do they say hi, guys, back to me? Well, I know one guy that's got a video where he said hi, guys, and he got a hello back. But on that same token, there's something that they call, and this word is been trashed, mind speak. Basically, all it is telepathy. They can speak to us through that way. But you're going to have to be open to it. And, for a lot of people, that really goes against most of what they believe when you say, well, yeah, right, they can speak to you through telepathy. I'm here to tell you that they can. I'm also, I have one audio where there's a male. He's a young male. He's not a juvenile, but he's a young male, would always come up in the woods when I would be out there, and he's never quiet. He's like a bull coming through there. So one night in July, I just decided I'm going to ask him what his name is. And I heard him come up. I knew he was close. I'd already had responses from him in other ways, and so I just said, what's your name? And in my mind, I heard Rujusna. And I said back to him, Rujusna? and I heard again, Rujusna. And I had my phone, and I thought, oh, man, I better put that audio that on my phone, or I'll never remember that when I get back to the house to write it down, and I sure don't want to forget his name. So I audioed that on my phone. I was doing some audio that November, and I put the audio outside and gone and got it the next morning and was kicked back in my recliner listening to what I had recorded through the night. And I hear on this audio a male addressing another male, and he says, Rujusna. Wow. I come up out of my recliner, and I went, oh, my gosh, Rujusna. I know what that name is. And so in that audio, they are speaking English, and this older male says to him, approach slowly. And they do some clicks and some knocks and some other things through this, which is some of the things that they do. And then at the very end of this clip, which is like, I don't know, almost 2 minutes, he says, we're going. Now, a lot of people would say, you're nuts. And a lot of people have said, I'm nuts. And that's okay, too. I'm classified as a coquette, so that's fine. But for him to say to Rujusna, approach slowly, that meant something too, because I already knew that Rujusna did not approach anything slowly. He came through the woods like a bull. So it was like I had all of these little markers in this audio that of things I already knew. I already had heard that name. He gave it to me in my mind, Rujusna. And then I hear the older male that's there address him and call him Rujusna. So, yeah, there's, that's hard for a lot of people to believe, and I understand that, and that's okay too. I'm not trying to make anybody believe this. I'm just, sharing that this is something that happened to me. And the interesting thing that happens when you begin to share the things that happen with you, you meet other people who are having this same thing go on with them. Because I'm not unique in this.
Well, let's talk about that, Arla. It sounds like you have a lot of audio evidence. Do you have any visual evidence? Have you been able to capture anything in pictures or in video?
I've got a couple of photos. They're not definitive. I've got one of Indigo, who is, and it's actually on my Facebook page. I keep him up sometimes as my cover on my timeline just because I like to look at him. And Indigo, who is a male, he is an older juvenile male now. Blue, who is his younger sibling, a male. I do have a photo of him. I have a photo of one I call the big one. And they're not definitive. They're not full body photos. But, they're what I have, and I don't take them out there and say, look at this. This is true. There's one there. Can you see that? I put them up, and I have people see them in there. When I go out to the woods, if I've got my camera, I'm always very careful, and I always tell them, I'm out here taking pictures. If you guys want to be in my pictures, that's cool, and if you don't, that's fine too. I do the very same thing with my audio. If I'm doing audio, I tell them, I've got my audio set up. If you guys want this on, okay, and if you don't, turn it off. I've even told them, you can trash this recorder if you want. This is totally up to you.
Mhm.
And
that
it was
sounds really similar to what we do.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going out there and telling them what to do. I mean, that's not my place to do that to begin with. Someone asked me about a link for Indigo. I'm on Facebook, Arla Williams, and you should be able to find me, I think. If you can't, you can find Tom Kentrail. He can always send you to me. He's in the chat, too. And I've got several other friends in the chat also. You know, but I'm not trying to prove anything. I didn't ever try to prove anything. When I came into this Bigfoot research world, I was in shock. I had no idea it existed at that point. I knew the Bigfoot existed. I'd interacted with them, and I was in total shock when I came into the Bigfoot research world. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I think the Creator has dropped me down in among the Philistines, because they were always at each other.
Well, Arla, you talk about the Bigfoot and how they are similar to humans. Do they have distinguishable personality traits that you find?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They, like us, one of the interesting things about Indigo, I'll tell you a quick story about Indigo and my dog. And my dog has been raised around them, so she doesn't have a problem with them, and they don't have a problem with her. When I would walk my dog, Indigo would go walking too, but he would be out away from us. He would never come up really close, but he would be skirting us inside the trees or the bushes and things. And so one day we were walking, and my dog Wado had turned and looked across the road away from Indigo. She heard something, so I turned to look with her on the other side of the road to see if I could see what she was looking at. I didn't see anything, so I turned back around to look where Indigo was, and a little rock comes sailing through the air and hits Wado right at the base of her tail, and she jumps and turns around and looks back towards Indigo, and everybody's happy again. It was like he wanted her attention walking as we were going. The juveniles are such teasers. Oh, they are the biggest pranksters. I spend a lot of time in the woods alone, and I can't all night. You know, I'm by myself. I'll have Wado with me sometimes I go by myself. One morning, I woke up at about 4 o'clock, and some little juveniles are outside the tent, and they have a hold of my tent and are literally shaking it. And they woke me up, and I was like, what are you doing? You woke me up. And you hear them scatter, you know, as they woke me up. So, you know, they have personalities. They all have just the coolest personalities.
Well, you know what, Arla, I know different tribes have different stories about Sasquatch. So I just want to ask you, which one of those stories has the most meaning for you?
One of the stories I like the best is one that a Choctaw elder had told, and it's called Imahawksy. And in Choctaw, Imahawksy means forget about it. And the way he told this story was there was a man who was doing some things he shouldn't be doing. He was lying and doing a lot of bad things that were very disrespectful. And so one night, the Bigfoot came to him. And so the next day, the man went to the elder and he said, the Bigfoot came to me. Why did the Bigfoot come to me? And the elder told him, Imahawksy. And the man looked at him and said, Imahawksy? That means forget about it. He said, yeah, forget about what you're doing. Forget about the things you're doing that aren't right. Forget about being disrespectful. And that, you know, that's a pretty simple teaching.
Mhm.
And it's pretty much what I hear from a lot of tribal people as far as what they're saying. The Zuni elder had said that the Bigfoot there lived down under the ground. They were a raw being, and when the people weren't living like they were supposed to, they would come up and be showing themselves to the people, so the people would know you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And you hear that a lot, you know, from different tribal people, that they're kind of that teacher that says, hey, you need to get yourself straight about how you're living and what you're doing.
Well, you know, Arla, as Luci and I are in the paranormal community, there's always drama and controversy that arises, and the dissension that usually goes on in between all those groups. Now, from what I've learned, the Bigfoot community seems to be almost like 10 times worse than that. There seems to have been some sort of accusations from critics within the Bigfoot community regarding your stories and claims. Can you share?
Yes.
Can you share some of those and maybe sort of set the record straight?
It's that thing that there are so many that think that I'm trying to scientifically prove something, and they get very upset if I tell a story or share something. They think that I should be proving this through science. And, you know, I believe that at some point science may possibly prove a lot of the things that they do. It doesn't matter in this Bigfoot research world if you're on my end of the spectrum or if you're on the ape end of the spectrum in this. You're going to have dissension even within those same groups. I look at it as what is the teaching that the Bigfoot is bringing to us? Well, here we are in this realm of the Bigfoot, and a lot of people aren't getting it. They're just not getting it. Tom Powell, I don't know if you know Tom Powell's name. He's a very well-liked author in the Bigfoot world. A lot of people like Tom on both ends of the spectrum. He's a really nice guy. And I was speaking at a conference in Richland, Washington. And prior to the conference, there had been this group who had called me a kook, and that this kook was going to speak at the conference. And so I was having breakfast that morning and was sitting with Tom Powell. And I told him, I said, Tom, you know, I'm really upset about being called a kook. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know, why would that upset you? You know, you're used to that. And I said, well, no. I said, you know, that's a very sexist term. I am not a kook. I am a kookette. And that's how I want to be known. And he told me, he said, you have to open your talk with that story. And so that's basically how I look at this. Whether you're dealing with ghosts or spirits or Bigfoot or whatever, there's always going to be someone out there who challenges you and wants you to prove what it is you're saying.
We had on the show, maybe it was 9 months ago, we had an author, Jeff Hillier, who was a big Bigfoot researcher, and he had written a book. And it was, if my memory serves me right, it was a dissection of the Patterson-Gimlin film, that big famous film from 1967.
Yes, Bob Gimlin is a personal friend of mine. That was one of the men responsible for filming that.
All right, so my question then to you is, what are your thoughts on that film?
It's real. It's real. I know Bob Gimlin very well. This is a very honest man. I've talked with him at length about that whole thing that happened. So I don't have any problem at all believing. I believe that before I ever knew Bob Gimlin, because of what I know about the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch and what I know about what they look like, how they move, and that type of thing. So I could look at it from that perspective and say, oh, yeah, I know what that is. And then when I did meet Bob Gimlin and got to know him and what an honest man he is, and then him talking about this, it was like that even, made it even more clear to me, that this is true.
Well, and Luci, you just actually found an article today, correct?
Yes, I did. There is an article that was posted about some DNA evidence that they found a big toe from a Bigfoot.
Or I think it was a toenail, right?
Toenail, yes, the toenail.
I think it was some Arizona researchers, I think, had found what they claimed to be a Bigfoot toenail. Have you heard of it? Did you hear?
I know what you're talking about. There are actually 2 DNA studies going on right now, one by a Dr. Ketchum and then one by a Brian Sykes, who is in the UK. There are those studies that are going on at this point. And they do have actual Bigfoot DNA in those studies, in both of them.
Well, Arla, you know what? Doing this research and reading the stories, most of them they just not only touch on our relationship with the Sasquatch people, but they also touch on our relationship with the earth. What can we learn from these stories that can help us to live in harmony with the earth?
I have a lot of people ask me when I talk about this respect thing, about respecting the earth and respecting the water. This is an important thing to do, regardless of what your belief system is about the Bigfoot or any other belief system. This is the only place we have to live. If we trash this, where are we going to go? I have people say, what do the Bigfoot want us to give up our cars and give up all of our other stuff? No, they wouldn't ask that of us. What their teachings are and what so many tribal teachings are, and indigenous people from all over are talking about, is be conscious about what you're doing. When you turn your water on, be conscious about how you use that water. Be conscious about how you drive your vehicle, how you use the energy that you use. We're not going to give up cars, and we're not going to give up air conditioning, and we're not going to give up the things that we use on a daily basis, but we can be conscious about how we use them. I help to share the vision of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, and that's one of the things that they teach us, is that this is a sacred place where we're living, and we have got to come back to the understanding that we have a relationship with this earth. This is a relative. This is not just a hard rock, something we're living on. There is a symbiotic relationship going on between man and the earth. And we need to be understanding this and how we need to go about doing this. And with our water, what are we doing to our water? What are we doing to our air? We have to have water. We have to have air. If we ruin all of this, what are we going to do?
so true. You know what, Arla? What is the one thing that you would like people to know about Bigfoot?
That they have families, that they live in harmony with the earth, and that they're not asking anything of us but to be respectful of how we use this that we live on, and being respectful of each other. I've seen their families. I've seen their interaction with their families. These are people. These are not some large, hairy ape that is in the woods. This is not a descendant of Gigantopithecus. These are part human people. They carry human in them. And that's a very important thing to remember, that, like I said, it's going to push us to the envelope of understanding if all of these DNA projects and everything come out and all this is proven scientifically. This is going to push us as a people to be respectful of them, because they are different in a lot of ways, and yet they are still like us too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Arla, thank you so much for talking to us. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you?
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Midnight Walkers on Wednesday. I do speak from time to time at different conferences. I think I put Midnight Walkers URL in the chat just a little bit ago, and I'll put it back in there again. We are on Wednesday nights on Blog Talk Radio. We talk about a lot of different things, and we have speakers that come on. Like I said, you can find me on Facebook, Arla Williams. Send me a message and let me know that you heard me, and I'll friend you as long as you're respectful. On my Facebook page, you can stay there forever.
Do you have any conferences or events coming up that we can go to?
I don't have anything right now. We will probably be doing a conference again in the next year in Georgia again. We had one in January in North Georgia. It was just wonderful. But right now, I don't have anything scheduled. We are starting some meetings and things that we're going to be doing out in the Pacific Northwest, because I am in Oregon now. Mm-hmm. I am an Oregonian, I guess. So we've got some things we're going to be doing out here in Washington and Oregon. So you can find me on Facebook and say, hey, what's going on?
Wonderful. You know, Arla, it has been so special to have you on, and we hope we were able to get your word out there so that people can learn a different side to the Bigfoot that we all know on TV and in the movies. We really hope to talk to you again.
I'm always available. This is what I do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, is speaking out for them. And thanks, everybody, for coming to the show and listening. This is my heart.
Well, great. Arla, actually, I have actually one more question. You know, you've got so much insight and so much thought and passion for this field. Is there any thought to maybe even writing a book?
If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me,
you wouldn't need to write a book then.
It's something I'm thinking about, and I can't say that I will ever do it. I get pushed. I do have a CD coming out here in another month. And I will have that CD available. It's a chant. It's also songs that I sing when I'm in the woods. And you'll be able to find that on Facebook. I will have that there. like I said, I'm not very good at putting myself down in a chair and writing at all.
Well, we're so happy to actually have you come on the show and tell us your story, and so we really do want to thank you. And to catch Arla, go to Midnight Walkers on blogtalkradio.com every Wednesday, and you can also check her out on Facebook at Arla Williams. Thank you so much, Arla, for coming on the show, and have a great weekend.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It's been awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. You know, when we were doing the research and we were talking about, you know, we always try, Lucy and I always try and plan the shows out way in advance, a month or two in advance, just so that we can get the schedule, you know, sort of down pat and be able to then reach out to the guests that we'd like, the speakers that we like to have come on. And we hadn't had a Bigfoot show since I think we had the author Jeff Hillier on, correct?
Right.
So, I just thought it would be really cool to have another show about Bigfoot. But I said to Lucy, and this is just the background of why we had Arla on, I said to Lucy, you know, I really just don't want to do another, tracker type of guest or another researcher, because I think it's been done already. I think we've heard a lot of the many higher authority figures within the Bigfoot community, and I wanted to try and bring something different to the show. And I came across Arla actually from a video on YouTube, and it was at one of her conferences, and she was speaking and talking about an interaction with Bigfoot. And what caught my ear was when she was talking and labeling Bigfoot as people. And that's the first time I've ever heard of it. I've always heard other people or other groups talk about this creature, you know, this monster, this Bigfoot. And from listening to her and hearing her talking about the human characteristics that they have, the family, and then relating it to the Native American side to it, that prompted me then to do research into the legends and folklore and the tribal stories that have been passed along down from generation to generation within the Native Americans, and how they talked about bartering and trading and communicating and living pretty much within close vicinity to the quote-unquote Bigfoot. And I thought that was an interesting side, or an interesting take to the Bigfoot topic, that I thought Arla would really do a big hit and just bring that to the forefront, so that you gave another side to the thought of Bigfoot. I think everybody in their mind, whenever they read or hear, they think of this big grizzly bear type of thing that may be monstrous or ugly, or, you know, sort of that Igor type of creature in the woods. But there's a more loving side to it, and, you know, what better way to have someone other than Arla? And yes, I just did cough, Red, but just to have another side to the topic, I thought it was really eye-opening for me, and I thought I would just like to share it with everybody, and that's why Lucy and I decided to have Arla on.
Yeah, you know what? To me, this was a real treat. Of course, the Native American side of it, I jump on anything that has to do with that. And I really love her message. It's not just about Bigfoot. It's about the harmony between us and the earth. And these are the things that the elders teach us. Like she said, it isn't just a big rock that we live on. It is our home. And there is a relationship between us and the earth. And there is a relationship that we very possibly can have with Bigfoot. I mean, like you said, Anthony, it's not this big monster cartoon that everybody runs out there. And it's so funny because it seems like in the Bigfoot community it's almost the same as in the paranormal community. You've got those that go out there and they scream and they yell and they want to demand that they get a reaction from the Bigfoot, and that's just not how it's done. I mean, you really have to have that respect and love, and I think it boils down to what's in your heart. And I think Arla has a beautiful heart, and I think that's probably what has made the connection to the Bigfoot people so much easier for her.
Yeah, I think that you touched on it a little bit. You know, there are groups out there that are disrespectful, and they hunt Bigfoot. I mean, their tagline is, you know, dead or, you know, not alive. And they go out there with that mentality. I just think that it's horrible. And same goes along with what we do within, you know, as a paranormal investigator. You know, you've got those folks that go out there and just taunt the heck out of the spirits and the ghosts that are out there. And, you know, you're going to have that. It's going to happen. There's no way to get rid of it. But if there's a way to change the mentality of people or make people think otherwise or create a softer tone to the topic that they are looking out for or searching for, whether it be Bigfoot or UFOs or paranormal, whatever it may be, that's the reason why we wanted to have Arla on, was she gave that other side to it and made you think about it and gave a great message about, you know, what we're doing right now and how they are perceiving it. Because you got to think about it this way. You know, if there is a Bigfoot and they obviously were not just planted on this earth, you know, within the last 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years or so. You know, they've been around for a very long time, so obviously there's been some sort of interaction with the people of the planet. And the first people of this land were the Native Americans. And so, you know, you know what, that's actually a good question I should have asked Arla, was who was here first? Was it Bigfoot or was it Native Americans?
I'm going to venture to say I think the Bigfoot were here first.
Probably.
It's just, it has to be. It's just such a big, mystical, beautiful subject. And I think it's a lot nicer and more rewarding than what's being put on television. Sure, you know, they've got all these shows and the Bigfoot trackers, like you said. I mean, you know, they make it look like this big, you know, let's go out and let's hunt Bigfoot. But it's not like that. I think these people that are actually going out and tracking probably would get a better connection and probably make contact if they just changed their style a little bit. But as anything, you know, you're always going to have people that believe that they're doing it the right way, and you know what? It still boils down to what we said before. Your truth is going to be your truth. You're not going to convince somebody else of what you know or what you find until they find that truth themselves. All you can do is just present what you have, and I think probably the best thing about it is that your truth is your truth. So you know within your heart what you know. And talking to Arla, what she has in her heart is what she believes, and I think it's beautiful.
Right. We've said it so many times. Experience is the only evidence that you will ever believe. And so for you to believe it, you'd have to experience it for yourself. And that's the only true way to do it. You know, I think even if you had science involved in it, I still think people would have doubt. I think there would be still skeptics out there that would say otherwise. And that goes for every quote-unquote paranormal topic that's out in the field. And so I just really think that it is up to the experience of the user, of the person themselves, that are actually going to believe it. So it was a great show.
It was a wonderful show. Arla just posted in the chat room, I know of human elders who have done things that would make people think that they are interdimensional. And I say yes. My grandmother would freak me out. There are things that this woman could do, could communicate with me without even opening her mouth. We didn't even speak the same language. She spoke Spanish. I spoke English. There are elders that I think have come to terms with what they know and the truths that there are in this earth. And we need to do ourselves a favor, and we need to listen. We really do.
That's a good point. That's a great point, Luci. All right, so do you want to move on to some fan mail?
Yes. Okay, you want to go first?
Okay. I've got a email from Millie Kazanowski, And she writes, Dear Paranormal Review, I notice you guys don't post a lot of pics of yourself or looking all tough like some other paranormal groups. Thank you for not using sex to promote your work. Kudos to you both. Love the show, but please have Amy and Steve from the Dead Files back on again. I would love to call in and talk to them. Yeah, I really do wish we could have Amy and Steve back on the show from the Dead Files, because I missed that show. I was not on. Lucy handled it all by herself. So kudos to you, Lucy. But for the first part of her email, she writes about not posting a lot of pics of yourself and looking all tough and using sex to promote our show. Yeah, we don't. It's not what we do. It's not who we are. We have noticed, other folks in other groups that do that. It's kind of laughable to me. You see some of the people trying to imitate who they, idolize on television and trying to imitate that type of look, or try and use their quote-unquote sex appeal to gather attention or to, I guess boost themselves up. But to each their own. It's not what we do. It's not how we are. We are passionate about the paranormal, and that is what our main focus is on, is finding out answers or trying to get close to the answers that we'd like to get close to. And so that's what we focus our energy on, and not about our look or, of us per se. It's our words. It's our speech and our communication, which is what we want to get out there. It's not physically us itself. We don't use ourselves to sell it. We use our words.
Well, I do have to say that Dead File show was the scariest thing that I've ever done in my life, and I was wishing that you were here with me to do it. But you know what? Steve and Amy were so wonderful, and it was a great show. And I definitely want to get them back on again, only because I know how much you were looking forward to that show, and I really wanted us both to do that. So, you know what? They're going strong with this season. They've got some really, really amazing, scary stories. I think we definitely need to bring them back.
Yep. All right. So do you have an email?
I just want to say something on the pictures, okay? The pictures, no, you won't see a whole lot about us, because that's not us. Just what you said. I have a personal problem with, and it's not just, in the paranormal community. I have a personal problem with people that are constantly posting pictures about themselves. That's wonderful. That's awesome. But you know what? It definitely is a cry for attention, and we're not doing this for attention for ourselves. We're doing this to get the attention on the things that we love, and that's the paranormal. If we can just bring somebody to a realization of a different way of thinking, or bringing something new that's within the paranormal, or, like tonight with Bigfoot, if it's just being able to bring that forward to somebody, that's what we want to do. It's not about us. It's about the subject. So I just had to put that there.
I do pimp you out every week, don't I?
Yes, I know you do, Anthony.
And what I just for people who are listening who don't know us, what that means is that Lucy goes and she promotes the show and she talks to people. That's what I mean. I use it as a joke.
Yes, I have a tendency to. Well, you know what? It's because I love our show so much. I love what we do. I talk to people. I talk about our show because I love it. I love what we do, and I really, really want to share that with everybody. So yeah, Anthony does pimp me out every week, but you know what? I'm a willing participant. Okay, Pimp Daddy?
Yeah. All right, get on to the next fan mail.
Okay, this one is from Maurice, and this is an email. Dear Anthony and Lucy, with all of the bad weather that has been happening around the world, I was wondering what you thought about it. I have read things that have ranged all the way from the end of the world to weather being controlled by the government to alien interference. I am not sure what to believe right now. What do you think? It's getting pretty scary. The seasons are definitely changing, and not for the better. And that's from Maurice. Well, Maurice, I this caught my eye only because I kind of had a little bit of the same thought, but I noticed some in the chat room a couple weeks ago, there were people talking about, they believe the weather's changing because of chemtrails, and there were others, the alien interference. And then I think we even found an article one time when we were talking about something about the government. Oh, it was around the time of Sandy, that the government is controlling the weather.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things aside, I kind of believe that they're partially true because, they've always said that, if you see it in a television show or if someone says anything about it, it's probably been in existence for a while before. But one of the things that Arla talked about tonight is probably the biggest belief that I have. I think, and this is only my personal belief, that Mother Earth is getting a little bit upset with the way that we are living. I think the Earth is a living, breathing thing, and I think she's making it known that we're just not living right. We're not taking care of the resources that we have. Arla touched on it. We're wasting our water. We're wasting energy. We're doing a lot of things that aren't beneficial to both the Earth and ourselves. And I think the weather is starting to show that. I did look at some statistics on this, and in about 18 states this year, in 2012, it has been the warmest year on record. One state, Washington State, it has been the coldest year on record. So there's definitely changes coming about, but I really, truly believe it's our relationship with the Earth. I really do. But that's what I believe. I don't know, Anthony, do you have any theories on it?
So your main belief, or not main belief, but do you believe that it could... the strongest. Do you think it could be a government controlled, or do you just think that it is the Earth crying out?
I think it's the Earth crying out. I believe that the government does try to control these things, and of course, you can pick up any book, any blog, and see things to that, and I believe that exists, but I don't think it exists to the point where it really is changing. I mean, there's too many changes across the board. I honestly believe that it's the Earth crying out. But that might be coming from the Native American side of me. I mean, there are some beliefs that are so ingrained in me and that I take for granted. And I did mention it before. It is hard. If you're Native American, it's kind of hard to get the beliefs that we have across to other people that don't understand that. So I think that's a lot of it. And it might be easier for some people to believe that, yes, it's a plot. Yes, the government is doing it. I think that's true to a point, but I think it all goes back to Mother Earth.
Okay. I don't know what to believe. I've heard a lot of stories about global warming, but I think I remember seeing some statistic report that it's sort of like an ebb and flow. It's sort of like a roller coaster throughout time. We've had the ups and downs with the freakish weather. It has, certain periods of time, and for possibly a year long, the temperatures have risen, and then you've had them dip down below, where you've had a period of time where they were extremely low, and then they go back up to being high. Is that global warming a natural global warming? That the Earth is just, it's sort of, I sort of correlate it to, as you as a human being, you are born and you, excuse me again, you're born, and as you grow older, things start to ache more. Your sight tends to go as you get older. Your hearing tends to lessen a little bit. So could it be that it's just the age of the Earth, and these are the ailments that it is being affected by it? I don't know. I read that somewhere. That was just one theory that was out there. I have read about the government controlling, like you were talking about, the weather, and I have actually seen, I think it was thermal images of where they say that this is coming from where it is being controlled, and there was a significant amount of heat or energy that was recorded in one area. I think it was in northern parts of America, maybe near Canada somewhere, and to the Japan earthquake. That was the only one that I had saw, and it was at the same time that the earthquake happened in Japan. And, people were saying, is it coincidence? Is it something man-made? Was this a after effect that was created by the government to create the earthquake? I don't know. I don't know if that is true. And I think you mentioned something about aliens, right, Lucy?
I've seen a couple of things where people have mentioned that it could be possible alien interference. I don't know that much about it, but honestly, as far as UFOs go and alien interference, I mean, I'm from the school of thought. I believe that they've been here. The whole ancient aliens thing, I believe it. I truly believe that they've been here. I mean, the signs are here. So if they have the technology to come here and to travel and to make it all the way here, why not? I mean, there's so many possibilities. I mean, who are we to say that it's not? But I think that boils down to whether or not you believe that the aliens are here to begin with.
Yeah, just to branch off on that, because I do a lot of research on everything, and it's usually funny because when I start off a research, and I can give you for instance, when we were doing the research for tonight's show, I was looking up a lot of Native American tribal stories and Bigfoots and anthropology and all these other different facets and sort of chapters to sort of formulate questions or actually just educate myself on. And when I would go through online websites or some reports, PDF reports that I had found that pertain to the topic, there were other words that caught my eye, and so, some things talked about UFOs, and there were some odd things here, and so I'd click on that and go that way, and it sort of branches off like a tree, and I'd sort of go into different directions, and, oddly enough, then possibly end up, talking or reading about orbs for some reason, but my main focus in the very beginning was talking about Bigfoots. So a lot of the things that I had found when I was doing a lot of the research on the weather, and this was around the time that that Sandy hit us, I started to do a little research on that, and there were reports that people had said that we're sort of in this reality television for the aliens, and this is their sort of test lab for them. And they are creating all of these diversions and obstacles and testing our abilities and our knowledge and our education. And this could be a way for them to see who's the fittest, who's not the fittest, or, what we can overcome or what we can do. And that sort of correlates to the idea that they could be, messing around with the weather. Again, I don't know if that's true, but it's just another theory that's been put out there that, could be. I just don't know what to believe about the weather. Yeah, it is crazy. It is very odd. It's nature. I don't think something that we can comprehend on our level. It's just Mother Nature, and this is the way it is. There's no rules, I think, with nature. She does what she wants, and there's no way that we can predict anything or speculate on why things are happening simply because it's Mother Nature.
Well, it's adaptation. I mean, look at the history of the Earth. I mean, we had an ice age, and the ice. What killed the dinosaurs? I mean, with the asteroid coming so close today. I mean, didn't the ice age, the thing that killed the dinosaurs, was a result of a meteor hitting the Earth? I mean, these things happen. They still happen. I mean, today was a perfect example. What happened in Russia last night with the meteor exploding and coming close. These things happen. So I honestly still believe that it's the forces of nature, it's Mother Earth, and I think I saw in the chat room somebody had said, I think we're giving the government too much credit. I think we are. I think we're giving man too much credit for what they're doing. I mean, there's some forces that you don't mess with, and Mother Nature is one of them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but I'm actually kind of, I don't want to say the word happy, but I'm just kind of, excited to the fact that this meteorite did what it did, because it is now opening the minds of everybody on this planet that anything can happen, and that maybe they'll treasure things a lot more now. I think we've taken for granted a lot of things, and people have always heard about, meteorites and asteroids hitting the Earth in movies, and it never was a reality. I mean, for myself, when I woke up this morning and I went online and I read that, I go, wait a minute, no, that's a joke. This is like some sort of joke news. And I opened up the article and actually skimmed through it to see where they were going to say, ha, this was a joke that was played on Yahoo or, whatever it was, Google News, that somebody hacked in and created this thing. But it didn't. And so it kind of shocked me into a little bit of a reality as well. So I just hope that this opened up everybody's eyes. And I always say this, and I always go back to that the whole issue that I have with people with, smartphones and the BlackBerries and all these things, and that their head is down into these phones and nobody's looking up. Nobody's looking around them. Nobody's in the world. Nobody's living in this world. Everybody's living in sort of this virtual reality, this sort of Earth Sims, if you want to call it that. And we're all living online, and nobody's living on the grounds because, and I think because the Earth is the way that it is, that there is sort of that disrespect to go along with what Arla was saying. I think because people are so much virtual that they don't realize that there is an Earth. There is a finite amount of water that we have. There is this air that we breathe that we're taking for granted right now that could possibly turn lethal or could possibly, diminish. And so I'm kind of excited that this whole thing happened. Maybe it'll change everybody's minds out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm a hopeful person, but I'm just thinking that maybe that it would do something like that.
Well, all I know is that I think the bottom line, the lesson to learn from all of this is that, what's going to happen is going to happen. I mean, there's some things that we can't change. So what can we do in the meantime? We can live our lives each and every day the best that we can. You see all these little posts that people put and stuff, life is short. Well, you know what? Life is short. And you have only a certain amount of time to do the best that you can. And that includes respecting yourself, respecting the earth, and respecting each other. And I think that's what we need to look at. I think that's the lesson that we need to learn. I mean, who knows if that meteor would have hit today? We may not be talking right now. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And if we're going to live our life in fear and worrying about what's coming, what kind of life is that going to be? It's not going to be anything.
Well, before we get into the radio fan of the week, Luci, I wanted to ask you, do you believe in Bigfoot?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do. Yes. And the reason why I do goes back to what Arla was saying, the teachings from the elders. I believe that there's a Bigfoot, but I also believe that there's a lot of people out there that are not so honest about what they're finding and what they're presenting. Like you said, doing the research, I saw the how do you say it? the drama that happens in the Bigfoot community, which is much the same as what's happening here. I think just as in the paranormal community, I truly believe that there are some people in the Bigfoot community that are looking for that attention and want to be noticed so badly that they're willing to put up things that just aren't exactly what they are. And that's that.
Now, you brought up an interesting area to get into, and you said that you believe because of what your elders had told you of the, of your Native American culture. Is that the only reason why you do believe is because you've heard the stories and you've heard it being passed down to you? Because what I sort of correlate that to is religion. And so, I'm of Catholic faith, but I'm sort of questioning that. I don't right now believe totally in my religion, and that's been passed down to me, and that's been taught to me, and it's sort of been instilled in me ever since I was young. But I'm sort of questioning the stories and the beliefs of it, and you know me, I have to experience it in order to believe it, just like in what we do when we go and investigate. I always keep a one skeptical eye open on things, just to keep a little bit grounded, but also be able to explain it to myself or talk myself out of it being either a spirit or not a spirit. You know what I'm trying to say? And so, is it only because that you were told this when you were young? Is that the only reason why you believe, or has it been maybe stories that you've heard on your own that has sort of solidified it for you?
A lot of it has to do with what I'm learning now. I was raised Catholic. That Catholic belief was instilled in me from a young age. I mean, I'm a half Mexican and I'm half Cherokee, so the Mexican side of me, of course, is Catholic all the way through. And there are things in the Catholic religion that I believe. Again, too, like you, I'm very disillusioned with a lot of the things that are coming to light as I'm growing older, and I'm learning